Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast. And can you believe it? The NBA Finals preview. That is right. It's crazy. We've been on this journey since last October, and now we are in the beginning of June with the NBA Finals starting this Thursday. We got the NBA aficionado with us, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Martin. It is hard to believe that we're finally in the hallowed grounds of June on the hardwood, and with that comes the NBA Finals. I immediately always go back this time of year thinking about what kind of treat we've seen in the past when we get into this again hallowed basketball forum, and I'm excited for Thursday to come. Obviously, I wish my team were in it, but injuries happen, and I think they were still probably a couple moves away. But I'm excited, Martin. How are you?
I'm feeling good, man. It just shows also how fast time is going because the NBA season started around October 23rd, 24th, and here we're recording on June 2nd with the finals starting on this Thursday of June 6th. So, like all those months, man, the 82 games, the All Star break, the playoffs, and we're down to these final two teams on who is going to host the Larry O'Brien Trophy. And we're going to have a first time champ of these superstars. One of these superstars are going to get their first NBA title.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting when that with the level of new that we have. I guess I should say again is we have the Tatum Brown Boston combo back in it, uh, famously since the Golden State Warriors series, and we finally have the Luka ascension, and one of these two teams are going to be the NBA champ. I mean, an heralded run for Dallas, an expected run for Boston. Martin, maybe we could rewind a little bit to tell the folks how we got there, our observations, which I think will set the table for what we can expect Thursday night for the series, and then we can go maybe predictions there. So, Martin, spend a little bit on what you saw of the Boston Celtics. Again, an expected run. They had famously faced a lot of injuries, and then they get to the Pacers series, and then that down goes Halliburton. Yet again, has been the theme. They can only play who's in front of them. I think too, if you're the Celtics, you got to be cognizant of obviously that not playing down to the competition. Playing who you have to play against, when you have to play them, with who they're bringing to play. So they dispatch the Pacers 4-0. But what were some of your observations in that series?
So, in that series and Boston's run overall, I mean, the underlining theme was injuries. There was always a star player, if not the star player, that didn't play in the series. Like the first round, they played their playoff rival that they've had these past couple of years, the Miami Heat. They beat them 4-1. Jimmy Butler didn't play. And then the Eastern Conference semifinals, they played against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They won that series 4-1. We lost Donovan in that early in the series. Jared Allen, again, did not play that series at all. And then Indiana, they lost Halliburton early in that series as well. But I do want to say with the Pacers, though, besides game two, they were in every game. That game one, when they were up 5 points with 20 some seconds left, they should have won that game on that blunder where they missed the inbound. And Jaylen Brown shoots that three, sends it to overtime. They lost that one 133, 128. Again, besides game two, they got killed. But game three, Boston won 114, 111. Game four, the closeout game. Again, without Tyrese Halliburton, man, these past couple, Boston won 105 to 102. So just want to throw that shout out to the Pacers out, even without their star. They kept fighting. They put Boston, gave them everything they had. But I would say with the Boston Celtics, and it's good for them that they had those close games because they got to work on late game management. They got to work on play calls if these situations happen in the final 30 seconds, final minute, final 5 seconds. So they were able to work on that if games do get close. And talent prevailed. I mean, Jaylen Brown, this is probably the best 4 game stretch of games I've personally seen him play. He won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, which I don't even understand why we have that trophy anyway, but that's just me. But I just feel like Jaylen Brown had his best 4 game stretch of his career, and we'll see if that carries on. And it was expected that they got to this point. It's just no one thought it would be this injury ridden and I don't want to say easy, but 4-1, 4-1, 4-0 appears easy. But there were some close games in those 4-1s and 4-0s. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of game two, like you said, I mean, the Celtics were tested down the stretch. Some of that by their own infamous doing. I mean, the MO on the Celtics is, when they go to sleep, they on either offense or defense, it's most often on the offensive side of the floor. And it's where they get into this ISO ball stuff, hero ball, and they stop running pin downs, they stop running actions, and it's just, I mean, and they got the players to do it, but I mean, the defense has got to be elated when you see, oh, okay, I got to D up and I got to stay on the floor and not bite on a pump fake and live with the result, right? I mean, you had some close games there where some stuff leads were lost down the stretch, or and that Boston needed to pull themselves out. Really impressed with what Indiana was able to do shorthanded in this run in the postseason. The Knicks, obviously, they were injury plagued down the stretch as well too. So they come out of that series. I mean, I love a revival of the Pacers Knicks stuff. From decades past, but I was really impressed with them. And again, the Eastern Conference pendulum is definitely out west right now, but it seems very promising moving forward. So, I mean, for the Celtics, again, they do this without Kristaps Porzingis. Again, they've got the two-headed monster and enough supporting cast around them that they were able to really do some impressive things. Jaylen Brown has been impressive. I think Joe Maz has learned to take timeouts a little bit. Like he's heard the loud criticism from years past, and I think he's had some timely coaching stuff that showed some growth his way too. But they advance and are ready to get that coveted first title with the pair that every offseason it seems podcasts and pundits are trying to break up, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But continuity some way somehow absolutely helps. And I mean, these cats are all still fairly young, and I mean, they've got an absolutely loaded roster. Al Horford's been huge the last 2 series, old man Al Horford. So, I mean, those were kind of my takeaways. Again, Jaylen Brown just so impressive on both sides of the ball, and what he's able to do to complement Jason Tatum. And again, the Celtics put off a lot of runs, from a frisky Indiana team. TJ McConnell coming in, changing the pace, getting buckets, distributing, and force them into some tough defensive sets. But they weathered through, and they will advance Martin to take on the Western Conference champions, the Dallas Mavericks. So if we rewind, and we're thinking back to the defending champs and what in the Denver Nuggets and what Minnesota was able to do. I mean, I think most of us were all convinced the winner of that series is going on in the finals. And Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving had something to say about it, and they had something to say about it handily, taking out the Mavericks 4-1. There was some back and forth games that were
taking
definitely
out the Timberwolves 4-1.
Sorry, yeah. So the Mavericks took out the Timberwolves 4-1. Yeah.
No, you're right. I just want to go back to with the series beforehand, because I know that Dallas against Oklahoma City was in 6 games, and the Phoenix Suns, I mean not Phoenix Suns, the Clippers were in 6 games, but the 6 games against Oklahoma City were completely different than the 6 games against the Clippers. I feel personally that was the hardest series Dallas has played. Against the Thunder, I saw the crazy stat that the combined score of all 6 games is dead even. And if you watch that game 6, SGA did not want that team to lose. He was making jumper after jumper after jumper in the final stretch, but PJ Washington gets fouled on that 3-pointer, that the offensive rebounds, and
that was a tough foul.
Yeah, it was tough. And PJ Washington was a star during that. If he doesn't play the way they do, maybe they're still going. Maybe Dallas still wins in 6 or 7, but if you saw what PJ Washington was doing most of that series, he was the star player on the Mavericks. And Lively as well.
PJ Washington, I mean, you talk about quite a pickup
Yes.
at the trade deadline. So obviously, we never know truly the impact of, is this going to be worth it or not. I mean, you look
Hmm.
at Oklahoma City, they pick up Gordon Hayward, thinking we're going to bring in some veteran leadership, and it wasn't worth the phone call to bring him in. And famously, GM even kind of backhandedly says that as well too. But you look at where stuff could go well, and look at Dallas for what they were able to give up to bring in PJ Washington from a fledgling Hornets team. They're able to rescue from the depths of our nation's capital and the floundering Wizards, Daniel Gafford. Two huge cogs in what Dallas has been able to do to run to the finals. But yeah, Martin. So let's look at PJ Washington here. So in that Oklahoma City series, the very last game, game 6, was the only game he did not score double digits.
Yep.
He scored 10 in game 1, 29 in game 2, 27 in game 3,
Yep.
21 in game 4, 10 then 9. I mean, just phenomenal. And I mean, rebounding as well too. He had 3 double-digit rebounding games,
Hmm.
some steady assist and stuff there too. Steady 3-point efficiency. He had 3 games where he hit at least 5 3-pointers in that 6-game series. Just impressive that this Dallas team needs. I mean, you wondered if it was going to be a Tim Hardaway. You wondered if it was going to be, some of the other cast of characters. Maxi Kleber goes down. You need folks to step up, and these two have been monumental acquisitions.
Hmm.
You definitely think, and looking at back at just past trade deadlines, this is one of the more impressive trade deadline sessions for a particular team, with what they were able to do and what Jason Kidd was able to do and how to utilize them to complement Kyrie and Luka Doncic. And I mean, you saw in the Oklahoma City series, and again, it wasn't it wasn't there were some obviously close games in the playoffs against teams, and in this series against Minnesota, it was, we had a few of those in there. 1 point game, 3 point
Oh
game,
yeah.
5 point game,
Hmm.
but you also had one where they were just kicking the dog snot out of them, man.
Yep.
124, 103 in the closeout, 116, 107 in game 3. And PJ had his hand in that, scoring double digits in all 5 games as well too. So I mean, it was impressive. You have this Kyrie Irving redemption story, famously against Boston, with marching around with incense. And I mean, Kyrie's owned up and has said a lot in recent months about again, his departure in Cleveland, his time in Boston, where things end up going with the Nets. And he basically, paraphrasing, but I was not mature enough to, at the time, or to tackle what I needed to tackle, or
Hmm.
I wasn't in the spot of in my career, personally, professionally, that I am now. Something, things along those lines. And you're seeing it. I mean, it's hard to believe, because that we've not had a Kyrie interrupted season with stuff off the court, some comments, some Amazon video references you shouldn't be referencing. Like, he has not been a distraction. He has been very, very much a huge part of, obviously, this Dallas run, and they're not there without him. But this Kyrie redemption story is every bit why the Dallas Mavericks are in the NBA Finals.
It's weird, Evan, watching them play, because when I'm watching Dallas play, the way they guard Luke, whoever's guarding Luca, they go underneath the screen, and then he drives, or then he takes that little step back through. But then when he drives and they collapse, and he always throws that alley oop to Lively or another big, it's like it's coming. Like, but sure enough, that play is there every time. And the fact too that matchups make fights. Like that's what we say in boxing. That's what we say in any fights. And they just couldn't match up their bigs on Minnesota, who did fantastic in the previous series. They couldn't match up with Dallas. They couldn't. Like I don't understand why they would switch. Was it game 2 where Luca hit the game winner?
Yep.
And they switched Rudy Gobert, defensive player of the year or not. He's 7 feet, and you're putting him on an island with the game on the line against Luka Doncic. That's bad coaching. You should have trapped that, and you should have forced that ball out of his hands. But those are just like blunders like that. But Minnesota's a young team. I mean, we were all like we said, we thought whoever won that Denver Minnesota thing was going to go to the championship, and Dallas said they had to say about it. But it was just stuff like that where I was just like, "What are you doing?"
So, Martin, we have the NBA Finals ahead of us. There's a lot of discussion points. We have the Kyrie return. We have Kristaps and Luka who didn't work out. Potentially, I mean, we don't know where Porzingis is injury wise. He hasn't played a game this postseason. We'll see. I if I were to put chips on the table, I would put them on the card combination that would get me wait till Boston loses a game before they or they're down in the series before he comes back is kind of that X factor wild card. Hey, we've got to unload all the bullets in the chamber from a metaphorical standpoint and put all of our pieces on the court at the same time. So I think obviously it'll be a cautious piece. I doubt he'll play in game one. Obviously, I'm not his doctor. I'm not him. I don't know, but they haven't necessarily ruled him out just yet for game one Thursday. But there's a lot of moving pieces here. Joe Maz versus Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd, famously one of the most just impressive point guards in his playing career, has
Hmm.
taken his lumps as a coach. There was conversations about obviously should we move on from him, but Martin, let's fast forward. Let's rewind to a year ago where you have Dallas tanking for Derek Lively
I
in
was
that last
very
game of the
mad.
season, and they are now in the NBA Finals.
You can't make that up. I was still don't
The
care. I
basketball
didn't.
gods are still angry. You're right.
Yeah, but you're right. You can't make that up. And it's the fact too that Dallas, they were not a top two or three seed in the West. They had to claw.
They absolutely do, and they did to get to where they needed to go. There's a lot of pieces in this series. Martin, let's get into some of the on court matchups.
Hmm.
So I believe in looking back at some game highlights from previous interactions in the regular season,
Hmm.
they tried Derek White, phenomenal defender, making an All NBA defensive team, second team, I believe. He, he's going to be huge in the series. He's going to be asked to do a lot, but Luka was hunting him, as I recall, in previous games. At a certain point, height does matter, no matter how good or how stout you are defensively and everything else. So, I mean, I think for the Celtics, you want to try to keep, your three-headed monster of Drew, Tatum, and Brown rotating on Luka at all times. You get trusting your switches that, hey, let's do the percentage and pray that if we got to do something else. I mean, they can't afford this is going to be an important series to see how much you can play Al Horford, because in the previous series, whether it was Darius Garland, whether it was Donovan Mitchell, whether it was Tyrese Halliburton before injury, teams were trying to hunt Al Horford when he was on the court.
Hmm.
And Al did really good on Darius Garland in the Cavs series, but I mean that was a switch. That was a favorable switch for guards. I don't know that you can survive a continuous double drag, which to basically a back to back pick and roll at the top, where that gets you onto, if at a certain point you have to make them force you into a switch like that. But that'll be interesting to see. Boston has the length and defenders for it, but Luka is Luka, man. There's only so much you can do but slow him down. And then whoever's not doing that has to be obviously watching for back screens and everything else on Kyrie to free him up. I mean, really, I feel like Boston's more of a systems based offense with how they use their two super duper stars, and this Kyrie Luka dynamic. The best way I can think to speak to it is it's really the best version of your turn, my turn you're going to see.
Hmm.
Because how many times do we look at teams like, let's go back to the CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard years. Let's look at very poor examples of that, but are coming forward. But like Zion and Brandon Ingram and to an extent Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, they're capable. These teams win a lot of games because they have good star players and they do your turn, my turn. But to take it to an NBA Finals with a run like Dallas has had right now, incredibly, incredibly impressive. What are your thoughts, Martin?
I think with the my turn, your turn, especially in that closeout game against the Timberwolves, which was abysmal for the Timberwolves. That was embarrassing. You were down 30 in a closeout game at home, and Luka was lighting them up for 20 points in like the first. As soon as he comes out, Kyrie's just like, oh, okay, well, my turn. And then he's just going off. It's kind of weird because if you remember when that trade happened a couple years back, we're just like, is this going to work? Like,
Dallas was desperate and they needed to do something to prove to Luca they're trying to win.
Lord and behold, you do that, and you get PJ Washington, you get the role players around you, and here you are. I think they play well together because it's like if Luca's having a bad game, you have Kyrie going off. If Kyrie's having a bad game, Luca's going off. And then in the closing moments, either one of them. Me personally, shoot. I mean, Kyrie being a Cavaliers, we know he hit the biggest shot in this team's history over Steph in Game 7, so we know he's clutch. So it's like if you don't have a multitude of defenders who can actually defend on the perimeter against Dallas, you're going to be in trouble because once they penetrate, because they're going to get by your primary defender, they're going to penetrate. They're either going to kick out to three to PJ or Hardaway, whoever, or they're going to throw the alley oop to Lively and Gafford. But Boston actually has the perimeter defenders that may be needed to do this.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, again, Boston's path here was expected. Again, is how big is that? We'll know real quick in game 1. How big a gap is it from where they've been to what they're facing right now
Right.
in terms of, hey, we played the competition we could. Maybe we toyed with our food a little bit, but this is where we're at. So it's it'll be absolutely fascinating, to see. Kyrie and Luke are going to play heavy minutes. Dallas can't afford crazy injuries. Having Maxi Kleber back to stretch the floor a little bit, I think, is spacing wise is going to help. But I mean, they've got some fairly decent size to them.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, that again, Boston's got the wing defenders, but they haven't been tested necessarily just yet. So I mean, it's going to be interesting just to see the in game matchups. What Boston's able to do, especially when they have to go to their bench and spell their folks. I mean, the Peyton Pritchards of the world. If Porzingis comes back, or the Al Horfords of the world, the Sam Hausers, are they going to be able to give you the kind of production that Dallas has gotten out of their role players with, a Derek Jones Jr., a PJ Washington, Derek Lively. Now you got Kleber back. Dante Exum resurrecting again his career after a short stint in the NBA, going back to overseas and then coming back. I mean, he's been very productive off the bench in some spells and a lengthy guard defender too. So it's going to be fascinating. Martin, do you have a prediction for this NBA Finals?
I don't know because I will have a prediction, but I'm just thinking on the other end too with Boston with that duo of Tatum and Brown. And it's kind of crazy statistically. They've been to a lot of Eastern Conference finals together, and this is their second finals together. And they lost to the Warriors in 6 games a couple of years ago. But you have someone like you just talked about Derek White, we talked about Kristaps Porzingis. Hopefully coming back. We talked about Al Horford. We didn't even bring up Drew Holiday, who people have said, best on ball defender in the league right now. They also have him. They got the pieces, man. It's one of those things too where it's like, but is Jaylen Brown gonna keep his pace that he's going right now, or is he gonna revert back to some of those clunker games? Or is Jason Tatum finally gonna rise up? I know this talk has been nauseating to me. I don't know about you, but every 2 seconds on the Sports Center, ESPN talking about who's the face of the NBA, and it keeps changing every 2 seconds. And here we are again. If they want, it might be Tatum, it might be Luca, who knows? But I think with the better defensive players, I do think Boston's going to win in six. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas won, but I do think with the team that they have currently constructed and Porzingis coming back, I think Boston wins this in six, and then they finally get that first championship since the Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, KG thing. But game one's going to be telling. Like if Dallas comes in and destroys them game one, yeah, I think Dallas would win that series.
Man, you're right. I could see this going either way.
Because we're still it's the final, so it's still the 2-3-2 format.
Yeah,
Okay. Yep.
I mean, man, I'm gonna zag. I'm gonna zag, and I'm gonna say Mavs in seven, and I don't feel good about it.
Oh no, it's no.
I know we're in for some good basketball. I'm glad that both teams' key workhorses are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that the East West dynamic brings the national basketball conversation, obviously, in the finals format back to those hallowed grounds as we start off on the podcast. But again, it's going to be a huge history maker for, I mean, a number of different individuals in the
Yes.
series.
Yes.
Will Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum finally get over the hump, or will it be back to the same old same as they keep getting there, but they can't, there's just they can't get over that hump, and it'll be a constant shadow continuing for them. If they do win, you know, entirely precedent setting for their careers, how we look at them and how we look at Boston, and heading into next year too. I mean, they'd be strong favorites to repeat again.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Dallas, you have the Luka ascension. Can Kyrie with a second team get a ring? Kyrie Irving is made for these moments.
Yes.
Like, I'm looking forward to the next 2.5 weeks of basketball, and the clutch shots and the impossible dribbling and the ridiculous. How did he spin the ball with, like, a billiards ball off 8 different things for it to bounce right to go in? Like, he is a wizard with the basketball like we've never seen before. And he seems as locked in as he ever has been in his career, with shades of 2016 in him. And even during the 2016 time, I mean, there were times where, he wasn't necessarily, too chatty with teammates and everything else, but he came in and he got the job done. And I mean, that's the only thing I think for Boston and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum is they're looking across at those Mavericks, Martin, and they've
Mm-hmm.
got two dogs over there. They've got two dogs over there that know their dogs. They know that their wallet says on it what Samuel L. Jackson's wallet says on it in Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I gotta keep it PG here. Those guys are killers. They're ruthless. They don't care who's in front of them. And at times with Jason and Jaylen, as talented as they are, there's times where they have bad shooting nights and disappear and aren't able to impact the game in other areas.
Yep.
I'm not saying any of that's a prediction. I'm just saying that, like, that's what they're up against, and it's a tall order. So, I mean, for the first time, Boston's going to have a heavy, heavy challenge. I'm surprised as all get out that it's Dallas based on how that Nuggets and T Wolves series went, but we're in for some really good basketball here.
I would also say on the flip side, Dallas is looking at the same thing. They're also looking at a duo. They're looking at that duo too, who is starving for a championship and are willing to do whatever it takes to get that said championship. So they're going to be looking at those two too. Like, I mean, Tatum's been a walking double double almost most of these playoffs. Luka's led the playoffs in almost all the statistical categories from an offensive standpoint. And it's kind of crazy too that out of the duos, Kyrie Irving is the oldest player out of these duos.
Old
Like
man Kai.
like if you looked at the second in the conference finals, like there was no star besides Kyrie, like around 30.
Nope.
Like this like this new and whoever wins this is truly going to usher in that new era of like the younger people. So it's real interesting, man. I think my
I'm
X
excited.
factor is going to be it's going to be Drew Holiday. If he's playing well, I think Boston has a good shot.
Drew took on more of a scoring role, the later on the series against the Cavs and then
Hmm.
in the Indiana game than I think he's been asked to do. And like you could see around, Boston's construct that there's a little bit of Drew said, "Hey, I can still do this." Like I
Yep,
was I was a member of Milwaukee's Big
that
Three.
won a title.
I helped that young up and coming Michael Carter Williams team in Philly. Early on in my career, me and AD scrapping into the 8th seed with the Pels. Like I can do this beyond the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, I think you're right. I mean, if there's one X factor in the series, talent wise, especially on both ends of the floor, who should put Boston over the top, it's that guy right there.
That Boston crowd on Thursday, people, buckle up. It is going to be vicious on Kyrie.
Yes, it
Just
might be. It might
buckle
be
up.
worse than Trey Young's experience in Madison Square Garden. It
Yeah.
might be doubly as bad, I guess. So, game one Thursday at 8:30 on ABC. We're primetime network. I know where you'll be. I know where I'll be, and excited to see this unfold. So that was the most important thing to start the podcast off. Obviously, that drives the work we do. That drives the conversations we have. It's getting to this point in the NBA Finals and discussing the path to how we get there through hardwood storytellings, the drama on and off the court, the trades, the free agency, all the implications is within a 9-month basketball cycle. How do we get to the mountaintop? And there's 4 to 7 games that are going to be played on this mountaintop in the coming weeks. So, Martin, and lesser news priority wise.
Hmm.
Um, there was a coaching change in Cleveland made a week ago, Thursday.
Yep.
Um, the Cavs decided to move on from JB Bickerstaff following their departure. JB got the guys to play hard. They were feisty despite not having like 46 points from their starting lineup with Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell out in the final game. Final 2 games really. I went to game 3 in Cleveland. Boston came in and Jason had a huge game. Donovan was, hobbled, and that was the last time me seeing him in person was the last time he was going to play in the playoffs. I did not know that, obviously, at the time, and nor did the world know that. So, you know, the conversation with JB was, JB was instrumental in the timeline of the franchise and getting us to a point where we kept increasing win totals up until this year. That we had developed a culture that bought in and everything that comes with that in terms of playing for the person beside you, next man up mentality. That the roster construct. There's no airheads on this team. There's no, hey, I'm in it for myself. There's no off the court drama with folks. JB has a lot to say with how we got here. But the hurdles with JB, obviously, the sins of the Knicks series last year, and again, New York's friskiness in this playoffs, I think helps JB's case. Should have helped JB's case a little bit in conversation with just again. I mean, we just talked about the Cavs bigs couldn't rebound last year, XYZ, all these things. Well, guess what? Josh Hart's still grabbing like 14 rebounds a game as a guard against anybody. So was it a Cavs specific issue, or was it, the Villanova Knicks are just kind of really good as constructed. So you have that piece, but the piece with we saw it in the Orlando series, obviously, you're going up against a juggernaut at Boston. Between the box score, the conversation with JB has always been on the offensive side of the ball is, we feel the front office clearly feels that by the time they made the decision that they have way too much talent to go through such big scoring droughts as they have. So Cleveland has to figure out what tweaks they can do in the offseason. And the first tweak is sustainability in terms of where the direction goes next is what do you, what do you do and how do you package it for a Donovan Mitchell extension? The media has been ready to trade him off for years
Oh yeah.
since he stepped foot in here. So he didn't really want to be here. He wanted to go to the Knicks, where he's from and the Mets connections and everything else. They take Jalen Brunson after, and the Cavs get Donovan Mitchell. So lock him up as number one. Then you figure out what you're going to do with the rest of the roster. But, again, I think JB did admirably. He knew what he was up against. He knew the pressure. He knew he had to win a first round series. And then, again, the injury pieces, regardless, I was torn by the time they got to the decision, but I wasn't surprised, I'd say. Martin, your thoughts on the Cavs deciding to move on from JB Bickerstaff at the helm of the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I wasn't surprised by it. I was a little shocked because again, that series against Boston, he did not have all of his horses in that race. And they still, I mean, they lost in five, but they were still competitive a lot of those games. So I thought seeing that, I thought they were going to give him one more year. I honestly did because it's like, all right, you didn't have Jared Allen for basically the whole playoffs, basically. And he's a big part of the team. And then Donovan, like you said, you watched him game three and you didn't realize that that was going to be the last. He just was going to be out game four and five. And when your star player is out like that, it's like you're not going to beat Boston. But his team didn't quit. So I did think they were going to give him one more year. We both knew if they would have lost that first round series that went seven with or a young Orlando team, he would have been out. But I don't know. Again, not surprised, but I thought they were going to give him another year due to all the injuries and all of that. Because now it's at this point too, where I know you're plugged in and stuff. It's if you're looking, we got to the second round, we lost to the Eastern Conference representative. What coach do you think is going to draw more out of the team that Bickerstaff did not? That's what I'm wondering. Like, who are you going to look for who you think is going to draw more out of the team? Because we're at a juncture where the Cavs are a good team. Like, when they're fully healthy, Donovan, Garland, Mobley, Allen, but everyone, like, they're a good team. So, what are you going to do to try and push this team to next step, winning the second round, going to the Eastern Conference Finals? Because if you look around the East, besides the Boston Celtics and maybe some healthier teams, even when the Bucks were healthy, they don't play defense. The Sixers, you never know when beats health. This team could compete for an Eastern Conference Finals spot. I mean, also the Knicks too. But so, what coach are you going to do to push that to the next level?
I don't think there's a magic bullet by any means. There's no pre-established coach. I was a Budenholzer fan until the Sixers nabbed him up, so it was just
Yeah, they
unfortunate
did that
timing
very
thing for the
quick.
Cavs. But outside of Mike, there's no pre-existing household name in there that's going to come in and rescue anybody. Mike D'Antoni's agent or is ancient. You've got a number of the guys who keep getting recycled places that doesn't work out. The Frank Vogels of the world and everything that comes with that. So I mean, the names that have been floated so far are New Orleans assistant James Borrega, formerly really did well with a really underhanded and bad Charlotte team when he was the head coach. So that he's an offensive mind they've been looking at. I'm a big fan of Dublin, Ohio native Chris Quinn. He's been on the Spolstra bench for a good long time now since his playing career ended. Um, is there a little bit of and is there a little bit of kind of a Popovich pipeline that should be and could be starting to be developed with Spolstra now, arguably the best coach in the game. So I mean, those are some of the names that have been floated out there. But I mean, I think as much for the Cavs, and it was clear by President Kobe Altman's statements were, again, it was not so much finding a new dominant voice to come in, but also just finding a new voice. And there's something to be said about sometimes you got to change something to change. I always think it's funny too when GMs and president of basketball operations, all those folks come out and be like, "Hey, we just need to change. We just needed some kind of change." Like you guys are working hand in hand with the owner, and you guys got to defend for your jobs too. So magically changing coaches is something that's going to benefit you too. You're the one who constructed the roster, so you can say, well, we gave them all the keys to the house, the Ferrari, and everything else, and look what he did to the place. Like, so again, Kobe's got to get this right. Again, change is change, but also too, you wonder, and one would assume you don't. There's been some rumblings. Obviously, the hit piece after the game started by Shams and Jason Lloyd, and a bunch of other Cleveland folks who contributed to that. Where I mean, it's the essentially memorial paperwork for JB's career. So I mean, that was your preamble there. That was already written, ready to go at the end of the game when the Cavs were eliminated. But from a coaching standpoint, I think for these guys and for one particular player, obviously, you don't make this move if Donovan Mitchell says, "Whoa, you're thinking about doing what?" Or
Correct.
whether he wants to step. A common thing with players too is, like, I appreciate you reaching out. You got to reach out to your star player.
Yep.
You got to reach out to your star players. But then sometimes players don't want it to come back on them, so they'll say, "Listen, I don't want to advocate for or against anything that you do. I'm going to show up and do my job and get the team better," because they don't want the blowback on them and that they're running coaches out. And I mean, look at the narrative with what comes with coaching a LeBron James and how many coaches
Oh
have been
yeah.
canned during his career and everything else. So like, but by that same token, and I think about this, I think most of us can relate to this professionally. When you have a really, really good boss and somebody comes, like if somebody were to come to you and basically ask you your opinion about, listen, like I have the authority or agency, or your conversation matters, or your perspective matters. Should we keep this boss being your boss, or should we go in another direction? And I'm of the standing to say, you know, playing that middle ground game, Martin, of I don't want to advocate for or against, and that's not my decision. It's not my place. That's not my role. Is a safe place to land the plane. But by all tokens, if you would run through a brick wall for that coach or that employer or that supervisor or that CEO or whatever else, that you would step into the lane of advocacy. And whether that did not happen with Donovan Mitchell when approached to ask about Kobe Altman, or he stayed in the other lane, those are both decisions in themselves too, to not advocate. And ultimately, that's got to play a role in why JB's not here anymore.
Yeah, I agree. If
Sorry for the long diatribe.
no, no, no. The priority is to
Real
keep
life experiences for the listeners too.
it's to keep Donovan. So they asked him like, "Hey, how are you feeling?" And if it felt like it was time for change, it's time for change. And it's just one of those things that stinks if you're a coach and you don't have enough cachet, that the star player is always going to win. Like, because
They're
obviously
the
these
ones
star
playing the
players aren't doing
games.
stuff to like Popovich or Spoelstra, unless you believe the stuff where LeBron was trying to get Spoelstra fired in 2011, and Pat Riley said, this isn't Cleveland. I run Miami's." Unless you got like an established people like that, but JB's going to get a job somewhere as an assistant coach or an advisor somewhere if he wants to do
He'll
that.
coach
And
again in this league for sure.
oh yeah, but I don't know. I also saw something too that CBS Sports is reporting. I think Kenny Atkinson, a potential
Yes,
candidate.
I neglected to leave him out. Um, Someone else with obviously the Brooklyn days, one of the lead assistants in Golden State right now, another highly respected coach, who's been around a little bit too. So I mean, I think those are the three. I'd be really surprised if one of those was not your coach, unless there's some dark horse that comes through. Um, Micah with the Timberwolves, standing in since their head coach had his ACL torn with that play essentially and had to sit on the bench. he's been thrown out a little bit too. But I mean, the Atkinson, Kenny Atkinson, James Borrega, Chris Quinn, someone in that wheelhouse is likely the next head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, they got a tall order ahead of them. The front office has a tall order ahead of them. This is one of the off years with the Ted Stepien rule where the Cavs get their draft pick because you can only trade every other pick. And we've all but sent them to Utah over the next, 4 or 5 years, staggered and alternating years. So it's a down draft. Everybody knows it. The Pelicans famously said, I think yesterday, like, yeah, this is bad, so bad that even though, we should be taking the Lakers pick here, we're going to defer to next year. We don't want it. So they're like enacting a reverse pick swap because it's so bad. So they basically said, Lakers, yeah, you can keep your 17 pick this year. We don't care. So a lot to be said, draft, everything else after we get past the finals. But it'll be interesting starting Thursday night, Martin. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm pumped. It's what we lead. Everything's been leading to this. Final two teams again. A new young duo is going to be champions. Like you said, Luka's ascension or Tatum and Brown finally get it done. One of the two options, and can't wait. Anything else, Evan?
Nope, I'm excited, Martin. Again, it's that pinnacle moment that we talk to and talk about, year round as we lead up in podcast discussion, and this is our culminating series. This is our culminating, 4 to 7 games to decide who will stamp the 23-24 season as theirs. And then obviously, quick transition, draft, trades, who enacts, player opt-ins, player opt-outs, team options, all those kinds of things. And we get into the madness of the off season and Vegas Summer League, and it'll be quiet for August, and we'll start football a little bit, but then we'll be that quick back. So, but this is our culminating platform in terms of basketball at the highest level, and in America, and arguably the world, is the NBA Finals, and it starts Thursday night.
I would also throw in too, like, let's just call it what it is. Summer League and the draft, even on the first night, it's going to be the Bronny James show. Everyone's going to see where he gets drafted. And even this summer, too. I mean, we got Olympic basketball going this year. Like, I'm very interested to see how the team performs in the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to see how the Olympic play comes together. And, again, your last Olympic go round for, the LeBron Jameses of the world and everything else. And, we'll see if they can do it. I mean, this team's, fallen short of what they feel like they need to. And that's why those guys were so angry and wanted to come back. And arguably they should. You should have your nation's best players out there on the court. And competing at the highest level, against as a global game that continues to rise, be elevated. I mean, think about how many of these stars were born outside of the United States that
Oh, yeah.
continue to impress in this day and age. I mean, it's amazing. So there's an interesting new chapter on the development of the game. I want to shout out Kirk Goldsberry's new book if anybody gets a chance to read it. If there's any diehard hoopers out there, Martin, you'd enjoy it too. I'm working my way through it now, but it's called Basketball Atlas.
Okay.
Essentially mapping out how the changes in the game over recent years. It's a great analytical dive into everything from Jordan and the hand check rules to how Allen Iverson really came in, was able to change a lot. But there's, and then the global expansion of the game, starting to David Stern's efforts and playing exhibitions overseas and how that's grown. I mean, in the background the other day, I had an NBA Africa game on, Martin. Like that's where we're at. I mean, it's exciting. Think about, where would this league be without that kind of expansion? For your Pascal Siakams, your Joel Embiids, as they had a forum with this, with Basketball Without Borders and everything else, as the league continues to grow. And it's a great read so far by Kirk Goldsberry if you get a chance to pick it up.
I just want to, okay, I just want to make sure because you call it Basketball Atlas, but on my Kindle it says Hoop Atlas.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Hoops Atlas. Yep.
Kurt Goldsberry. Yep, I'm
Yep.
definitely gonna buy it, and that's gonna be my next read. Might start that. Yeah, I'm gonna start that this week.
And if
Thank
you
you.
haven't read his precursor book too, also just on the 3 point efficiency and changes, a great book as well. He put out, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. It's called Sprawl Ball.
Mm, yeah, I'll definitely read these. Thank you. Shoot, maybe down the road in summer when we're talking off season, we can review the book.
I'd love to.
But with that being said, I have Boston in six. Evan has Dallas six or seven.
Yep.
And we'll be back to review the finals in about 2 weeks. And enjoy, guys, this Thursday. This is the L7C podcast. NBA Finals start this Thursday. Signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.